how I first noticed this. It wasn't in some big dramatic moment. It was quiet, almost invisible, like one of those things you only see when you slow down for a second. And let me ask you something before we even get into this. Have you ever sat with an older person and felt like there's a whole story behind their silence? Like they're thinking 10 things, but saying only one. Yeah, that feeling. That's where this begins. Because there are things seniors start doing as they age that nobody really prepares you for. Nobody explains it. Not your parents, not society, not even doctors sometimes. And the truth is, it's not always about getting weaker. Sometimes it's about becoming quieter, deeper, more selective, and honestly, a little more complicated. So the first thing you start to notice, if you really pay attention, is that seniors repeat stories. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, memory issues. But hold on. It's not always that simple. Sometimes they repeat stories because that moment, that one memory, that's where they felt most alive. Maybe it was a time when people listened to them, respected them, needed them, and now those moments are gone. But the feeling, they tried to bring it back by telling it again and again. And yeah, maybe you've heard it before. Maybe you're tempted to tune out, but to them, it's not just a story. It's like holding on to a piece of themselves that the world slowly stopped asking about. And that hits different when you really think about it. And then there's something else. Something quieter. Seniors start letting go of things, but not in a dramatic "I quit" kind of way. It's subtle, almost invisible. They stop arguing about small things. They stop chasing certain people. They stop trying to prove themselves. Not because they don't care, but because they've spent a lifetime caring too much about things that didn't matter. And now, they just don't have the energy for it anymore. And honestly, there's a kind of wisdom in that, but also a kind of sadness. Because sometimes, what they're really letting go of is hope in certain areas of life. Relationships that never got better, dreams that didn't happen, expectations that slowly faded. And they don't talk about it, they just carry it quietly. And here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. Seniors sometimes test people. Yeah, they do. Not in a manipulative way, but in a very human way. They might not call you, just to see if you call them. They might wait, just a little longer, to see if someone notices their absence. Because deep down, there's this question sitting there. Do I still matter? And the scary part is, they don't always ask it out loud. They just observe the answer through your actions. And that silence, it can say a lot, more than words ever could. Now let's talk about something people almost always miss. Seniors hide pain. Like real pain, physical, emotional, mental. They'll smile and say, "I'm fine," even when their body aches, even when their heart feels heavy, because they don't want to be seen as a burden. They don't want to feel like they're the problem everyone has to solve. And after years of being strong for others, it becomes a habit to stay strong, even when they're not. And that right there, that's something most people completely overlook. And then there's this shift, this strange, almost unexpected shift, where seniors start valuing solitude, like really valuing it. And it's confusing for people around them, because it looks like isolation, but it's not always that. Sometimes it's peace. After decades of noise, responsibility, stress, expectations, they finally get to sit in silence and just be. No pressure, no deadlines, no need to impress anyone. But here's the catch. That line between peaceful solitude and loneliness. It's thin, very thin. And sometimes they cross it without even realizing. One day it's, I enjoy my time alone. The next it's, no one came today. And those two feelings, they look similar from the outside. But inside, they feel completely different. And you wouldn't know unless you asked. And even then, they might not tell you the truth. Because that's another thing. Seniors don't always say what they feel. They filter it, soften it, hide parts of it, not because they're dishonest, but because they don't want to make others uncomfortable, or worried, or guilty. So instead, they carry it, and over time, that unspoken weight, it builds slowly, quietly, and then something interesting happens. Seniors start observing more, talking less. You'll see them sitting there, watching, listening, noticing things other people miss, patterns in behavior, changes in tone, the way someone avoids eye contact, the way conversations shift. It's like they've developed this quiet awareness, this ability to read between the lines. And the funny thing is, they don't always point it out, because they've learned that not everything needs to be said. Not everything needs to be fixed. Sometimes, it's enough to just understand and let it be. And honestly, that kind of awareness, it doesn't come easy. It comes from years, decades of living, making mistakes, learning the hard way, and slowly realizing what actually matters and what doesn't. And maybe, just maybe, that's why they start acting differently. Not because they're changing for no reason, but because they've finally seen enough to know better. And that realization, it changes everything. And the more time passes, the more you start to notice something deeper, something almost invisible unless you really look for it. Seniors begin to redefine happiness, like completely redefine it. Things that once felt big, achievements, money, status, recognition, they start to lose their shine. And instead, happiness becomes something smaller, quieter, but strangely more meaningful. Like sitting in a familiar chair at the same time every day, hearing a voice they haven't heard in a while, watching sunlight come through the window just right. And it might sound simple, almost too simple, but to them, that's real. That's enough. Because after a lifetime of chasing more, they finally understand the value of enough. And yet, at the same time, there's this quiet fear that starts creeping in. Not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly, like a shadow you barely notice at first. The fear of being forgotten, of becoming invisible in a world that moves faster every day, where everything is new, everything is updated, everything is replaced, and they start to wonder, where do I fit in now? And they won't always say it, but you can feel it, in the pauses, in the way they hesitate before speaking, in the way they sometimes withdraw from conversations they don't fully understand. Especially when it comes to things like technology, trends, new ways of communicating. They might nod, smile, pretend to follow along. But inside, there's a gap. And that gap, it can feel isolating. Like being in a room full of people, but not really being part of it. And instead of asking for help, instead of admitting confusion, they often choose silence. Because asking might make them feel outdated, and nobody wants to feel like they've been left behind. And then there's routines. This one's big. Seniors hold on to routines like they're anchors. Same morning habits, same meals, same schedules, same little rituals that might seem repetitive to others. But to them, it's stability, it's control. In a world that feels like it's constantly shifting, routines are something they can rely on, something that doesn't change without warning. And breaking those routines, even slightly, can create more stress than people realize. Because it's not just about the routine itself. It's about what it represents. Safety, familiarity, something solid in a life where many things have already changed. And speaking of change, seniors think about the past a lot, and it's easy to misunderstand that, to assume they're stuck or unable to move forward. But that's not really it. The truth is, most of their life exists in the past now. Their memories, their experiences, their best days, their hardest lessons. It's all there. And revisiting those moments, it's not always about nostalgia. Sometimes it's about making sense of things, finding closure, understanding choices they made, forgiving themselves or others for things that never got resolved. And that process, it's deeply personal, often silent, and rarely shared. And then there's something that can be a little heartbreaking when you realize it. Seniors notice who shows up and who doesn't. Every missed call, every "I'll visit soon" that never happens. Every time someone says they're too busy. Yeah, they notice. They might not complain. They might not even mention it. But they see it. And over time, they adjust. They lower expectations. They stop reaching out as much. Not out of anger, but out of acceptance. And that kind of acceptance, it's quiet, but heavy, because it means they've understood something. Something most people don't realize until much later. That not everyone stays. Not everyone shows up. And that's just how life works. And maybe the most powerful shift of all, the one that changes everything, is that seniors become more honest with themselves. Like brutally honest sometimes. They stop pretending, stop chasing validation, stop trying to fit into expectations that never really suited them. And instead, they start choosing peace, even if it means letting go of people's habits or parts of life that once felt important. And that kind of clarity, it can look like detachment from the outside, but inside, it's actually freedom. Freedom from things that once weighed them down. And yeah, it might seem like they're pulling away, becoming distant. But maybe they're just protecting what little peace they have left. And when you see it like that, it changes how you respond, how you treat them, how you listen. Because suddenly, it's not about why are they acting like this. It's about understanding what they've been through to get here. And that perspective, it matters more than you think. So next time you're around an older person, slow down. Just a little listen, even if you've heard the story before. Notice the pauses. The things they don't say, check in. Even if they say they're fine. Because sometimes, the things they don't tell you are the things that matter the most. And one day, whether we realize it or not, we're all heading in that same direction, learning the same lessons, feeling the same shifts, and maybe, just maybe, understanding this now can change how we show up before it's too late. So tell me, what's one thing here that made you stop and think? Drop it in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're still here, you already see what most people don't. And that alone makes a difference.